Hi everyone. I'm really sorry that I can't be with you this weekend, but I'm glad that I can still be with you in some capacity to cheer you all on. But I'm also sad that it means that my annual dinner date with the wonderful ladies from Peterhead is on hold for this year. I wonder if you can please pray with me that they do not find a more attractive model to replace me this year. I'm also grateful for all of you and all the exciting things that are taking place up north. The potential for Irving and East Lothian to start street passes, and to hear about the growth in Dumfries and the saving of lives in Inverclyde, as well as the day-to-day of dealing with your communities on a regular and a consistent and caring basis. As I was praying over what it is that I wanted to share with you today, I was drawn to a Bible devotion plan that was titled Dream Big and Do More. As I reflected on this title for a little while, I was initially troubled by this notion. We're often told by people who want what's best for us to slow down, do less, look after yourself, and do a few things and do them well. I reckon I'm not the only person in the room who's heard these phrases put to them, but it also allowed me to think back and look at how far we have come. Ascension Trust is 31 years old. Street Pastors is 21 years old, and AT Scotland next year will be celebrating 15 years. These past few years, we've had a number of areas celebrating milestones in their service. September took me to Salisbury, where they were also celebrating 50,000 volunteering hours. We worked out that over this distance that was covered in those 50,000 hours, it could have taken the team patrolling to Australia and back again. Over these years, significant achievements and milestones have been met. 10 years, 15 years, years of faithful service and impact have all been made. We all have some encouraging stories of how we have seen God move in this space with this ministry. So I want to ask the question, what was the dream, the vision, the hope that drew you to this calling? How big was that dream, and what has it enabled you to do? If we turn to Hebrews 11, it starts with this really encouraging sentence. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the confidence of things not seen. This small passage has always been an encouraging verse for me personally as I've wrestled in my own journey to the position of faith that I now hold. The confidence of the things not seen, the certainty of things that have been hoped for. It then proceeds to tell us about people who put that faith into action. Sometimes these people are labeled the heroes of faith, and some well-known names pop up, the likes of Noah, of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob, Joseph, Moses, David. The list just goes on and on and on. But then it finishes with this sentence. All of these were approved through their faith, but they did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us so that they would not be made perfect without us. Not all of their promises were fulfilled in their lifetimes. Some of their promises were fulfilled through generations and people who came after them, but through the legacy that these heroes had started in the obedience of following God's call. When the vision, the dream, the hope for the Ascension Trust came through, the heart to see a church united, empowered, trained up to serve the elements of a community that otherwise wouldn't engage with Jesus, did we see at that point what it would go to? Did we see that it is now what it has grown to become back then, when each of us took that first step as a street pastor, a school pastor, a rail pastor, or a prayer pastor. Did we think or imagine that good God would move in the way that He has done, and that we would be present to see how it has changed over these years? We would be our own eyewitnesses to the fulfillment of that calling, and also the eyewitnesses of how much more this work would deliver. I look back at my own life and some of the words of knowledge and promises and prophecies that have been spoken over me. It has been encouraging to see how many of them have been revealed and released, but there are some that are still to come. But now, looking at it with this lens of Hebrews 11, I'm also asking that question: how many promises are to be fulfilled by the people that come after me, but as a result of the legacy that Jesus is building around me and through me, should I stay obedient to His guidance? If we look through all the dreams, the visions, and the prophecies of what has been written in the Bible, but also the ones that have been spoken over us, the one constant is God, the promise maker and the promise keeper. And it is in this vein that I want to encourage us to dream big and to do more. One thing I am mindful of as I speak with you today is that the challenge that our teams are facing. You may hear we don't have many new recruits. Our teams are not getting any younger. The nighttime economy isn't what it used to be. We aren't getting the finances in that we once were, or we're struggling to raise funds. Just having to find a solution to one of these can be hard work. But if you're facing more than one, it can almost feel like an impossible task, that uphill struggle. But if I go back to the question of how big was our dream, or how big was our vision when we started, and rephrase the question of how big was our God when we started, the answer to this question often determines what we believe is possible. The answer often allows us to think of the things that have been hoped for and the confidence in the unseen. I went to Kenya in 2009 and felt like I was hearing an audible voice from God to work with the young people in Africa and help train them and educate them and support them to find value and identity in Jesus. I thought the call was to start an orphanage, a place of education. I felt strongly that is where God was leading me. And I thought that there would be an opening to this work when an international aid charity opened a position in 2012. But this didn't happen. I was back in Uganda and Rwanda in 2013 and tried to make a start on things then, but that was very short term. I almost started to believe that it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't until 2015 that I joined the Ascension Trust and got to visit Ghana and work with the Kayaye women in Accra before I saw a small glimpse of that dream starting to be fulfilled. 2016 allowed me to take a position of the school pastor coordinator that showed me that it's not about me doing the work, about sharing a vision, a calling, and a training for the church to develop visions for youth work in their own community. And that I needed to create that invitation for people to join in the support of the youth and young people in their own community. In 2018, that dream expanded to bring in healthcare to those in need in Accra and with the Kayaye women. But I wasn't a part of that fulfillment. In 2023, I personally saw more of that dream being fulfilled when we started to bring education and sustainable living into the mix. And again this year, In fact, as I'm speaking with you now, we get to work with 3 schools in Accra that are all about sustainable development, that are about providing the opportunity for these students, for these young women, those forgotten, to forge a way to learn about business, to get back into education, to be equipped to build a society and where all have capacity to thrive. So that dream that I had in 2009 has now expanded to also include things such as sustainable water economy, sport, justice and reconciliation, and climate change. All of those things were not my dream in 2009. That was not my vision in 2009. Yet God took the things hoped for, the things unseen, and showed me how in control of these things He was in all this time. He was the constant and the consistent one. But I was asked to be faithful and obedient to the truth that He has always been in control. But even though He blessed me with the vision and the dream, He was bigger than all of it, because it's not through me that it was being fulfilled, but through Him. I was just fortunate enough to be part of that ride. And this leads me on to this notion of surrender. A few weeks back, I shared a devotion with the network which looked at the nature of surrender and something that I feel God is asking of us now. I'm not going to repeat the details of that as they are available by accessing the YouTube link. Please speak to either your coordinator or Bethany to get access to that recording. Surrender is not about giving up, but it is about us relinquishing our control, our desires, our hopes, and our dreams to Jesus. No matter how rooted we might feel that they are in Him and what we feel Jesus has given us responsibility over to take on, He always wants us to bring it back to Him and say, what are we doing with this? This summer, I was in a place where I felt helpless because of my geographic location, and there are a number of situations and challenges and issues that felt like I needed to be present for. But ultimately, I had to surrender my desire to have complete control and fix things over to God. I had to surrender my gifts, my skills, my challenges, and my concerns and say, Jesus, over to you. And again, He moved in only the way that He could and did more than I could ever imagine. But we see Jesus show us this in Matthew 25, where He shares this line, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many, many more. Jesus gives us a vision, a dream, a skill, a talent, our hopes, and our promises, and wants us to give it the space and the opportunity to grow and thrive and bear fruit. But in order for it to do this, sometimes we need to repeat it over and over and over again so that people hear it. It requires us to knock on doors and make those phone calls and send those emails over and over and over again until people respond. Sometimes it requires us to make time to think outside of the box and look at how we can be making a difference with a different element of the community who needs help that we may not have helped before. And sometimes that means we need to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, here is a blank slate. What could caring and listening and helping look like in 2025? Could that be prayer walking alongside patrolling on a separate day? Could that be a healing tent? Could that be creating listening spaces in the cafes and pubs within our community? Could that be partnering with Acts 435 or other organisations? What is the brokenness in our community that God is crying out for us to look at and support as His people? Our call is to proclaim Jesus in our words, in our actions, in our prayers, and our presence, giving wisdom to what it is that Jesus requires of us in all our interactions. So let us be flexible in applying that to all whom we serve. But almost always, it requires us to get on our knees and say to God, I offer this all up to you and give you full control. Take all of our achievements, all of our history, all of our challenges and all of our future, all of my skills and all of my weaknesses and all my gaps, and use them in the way that you need to and not in the way that I think. I surrender everything to you, and I will make space for whoever it is that you are wanting to come alongside this work to be the fulfillment of your promise. I open my heart and my mind to dream bigger, to see bigger, and expect bigger, so that it is not I who does more, but it is you who does more through me, through us, for the building of your kingdom. I pray that we can continue to be the fulfillment of your promise from the beginning of time, that you will dwell with your people and restore them into your promise, into your presence, and into eternity. Amen. Thank you all. God bless, and I'm sure that I will see you soon.